You never forget the moment everything you believed in turns to ash. For me, it was a text. 5 words. We need to talk. Tonight. It was from my wife, Haley. We'd been married for 12 years, built a life from scratch. I helped her through grad school. She helped me launch my small tech company in a damp garage in Dayton. We made it. We fought, cried, laughed. We survived, or so I thought. The message came just as I was wrapping up a late-night meeting with investors. I stared at it longer than I should have, my instincts screaming something was wrong. She never texted like that. Not after midnight, not without a reason. When I got home, the house was silent. Haley was sitting in the kitchen, hands folded, a look on her face I couldn't read. No tears, no anger, just empty. "I'm leaving," she said. I laughed, genuinely, thought it was a joke. Then she slid a document across the table. Separation papers, already signed. Not a word of discussion, no therapy, no attempt to fix whatever I hadn't seen was broken, just gone. "Why?" I asked, voice flat. "I don't love you anymore," she said. "I haven't for a long time." That line hit like a punch, but it was what she said next that shattered everything. "There's someone else. His name is Evan." She didn't even flinch. No guilt, no shame, like she was telling me she'd change hairdressers. I stood up and left without another word. Drove to the river, sat there till the sun came up. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel. Just watched the current move like it knew something I didn't. But numbness doesn't last forever. By the end of the week, she'd moved in with Evan. He was younger, flashier, a startup CEO with the right friends and fake teeth. She told mutual friends we'd grown apart, told her parents I'd been distant. She rewrote our history in real time, and no one questioned it. I stayed quiet. I let her go. But that doesn't mean I forgave. 3 weeks later, I learned who Evan really was. Not just some rebound or charming opportunist. He was one of my former interns, worked under me 5 years ago. I mentored him, helped him get his first investor. Even gave him access to my pitch decks. He used them. Word for word. His current company, almost identical to a project I shelved while pivoting. The branding, the features, even the tagline, all ripped from my work. He didn't just take my wife. He took my ideas, my future. Now I was angry, so I started digging. Not just on him, but on them, on what they were doing, where the money was coming from. And I found cracks. Evan's company wasn't as stable as it looked. His funding was shallow, full of short-term angels with no loyalty. And Haley, she wasn't just playing house. She was part of the operation, listed as Chief Culture Officer, a fancy title with no clear responsibilities, basically a face to charm investors. A distraction? Perfect. They thought they'd won. That I'd roll over, that I was finished, but they forgot who I am. I built everything from nothing once. I could do it again. But this time, I wasn't just building to win. I was building to bury. I called my old college roommate, Carter. He's a corporate lawyer now, the kind who finds legal loopholes in his sleep and weaponizes them before breakfast. We met the next day. "I want to take them apart," I said. "Legally, strategically, piece by piece." Carter raised an eyebrow. "You want to sue?" "No. I want to outbuild, outsmart, and outmaneuver. I want them to lose everything, publicly, silently, and completely." Carter leaned back, considering. "Then we need to start now, quietly." He helped me restructure my company under a new name. We shifted IP, refiled trademarks, and started hiring. Fast. I reached out to old clients, partners, even rivals. Told them I had something new, something better, something Evan couldn't touch. By the end of month 2, we were live. Our launch went viral. My name was nowhere on the branding. No one connected me to the past. Meanwhile, Evan's company was bleeding users. His tech, glitchy customer service, non-existent. Investors started whispering. Haley started posting inspirational quotes and long-winded captions about loyalty and integrity. It was delicious, but I wasn't done, because revenge isn't about making noise. It's about making silence hurt. I didn't want them to see it coming. That was the point. No confrontation, no fireworks, Just the slow realization that everything was slipping, and they had no idea why. Within 2 months of our launch, my new company started gaining traction fast. We'd positioned ourselves as leaner, smarter, and more client-focused. But the truth was simpler. I knew Evan's weaknesses. I'd trained him. I knew how he sold, how he pitched, how he promised more than he could deliver, and I knew which pressure points would collapse his foundation. I didn't attack head-on. I offered alternatives. One by one, I reached out to companies I knew were unhappy with his results. Quiet emails, casual conversations, a soft promise. We're not them. We know what works. I didn't mention Evan. I didn't need to. His product did the talking for me. By week 10, 3 of his top clients had switched to us. That's when I saw the first public crack. A post on LinkedIn from Haley. Vague but heavy. Something about betrayal in business and loyalty being undervalued. She didn't name me, of course. She didn't dare. But the tone said everything. They were bleeding, and she thought bleeding louder would cover the wound. I smiled. Let them scream. I had work to do. Meanwhile, I quietly bought shares in one of Evan's suppliers, a back-end tech firm that powered his infrastructure. They were struggling, and I knew they'd entertain offers. My lawyer handled the transaction through a shell entity. Within a month, I controlled 38% of their board. 2 weeks later, a change in their pricing model forced Evan's company to renegotiate terms. They panicked, and I watched from the sidelines as they scrambled to adapt, delayed updates, and issued a rushed patch that broke half their system. Users fled. That's when I made my move public. We launched a new campaign, positioned as the solution for those burned by broken promises. Our wording was deliberate, not aggressive, just enough to sting. We didn't name names. We didn't need to. Our user numbers were exploding. Theirs were evaporating. A tech blog picked it up. Then another, and another. By month 4, Evan's company was in full-blown PR damage control mode. They rolled out generic apologies, promised to listen to the community, and started offering free trials like candy. But their burn rate was massive. They couldn't afford generosity. I knew their numbers. I knew their cash flow. That's the thing about revenge. It's most effective when you've already seen the other side's cards. Around that time, I ran into Haley. It wasn't planned, just a coincidence. A mutual friend's event, some alumni mixer I almost skipped, but there she was, standing next to Evan, talking to people like nothing was wrong, until she saw me. Her smile faltered. I walked past them, didn't say a word, didn't stop, just a glance. Enough to let her wonder what I knew. Enough to remind her that silence is power. She texted me that night, just one line. "What are you doing?" I didn't respond. She tried again 2 days later, longer this time, apologizing, explaining, telling me things I didn't ask to hear, that she missed me, that she'd made mistakes, that Evan wasn't who she thought he was. I read it once, then archived it. She wanted me to feel something, regret, anger, nostalgia, but I felt nothing, because I'd already buried that part of me. Evan wasn't giving up easily, though. He started courting new investors, desperate ones, people who didn't know the full story. He even tried to launch a rebrand, some last-ditch effort to pretend things were under control. I leaked the name of the new brand to a friend in the press. The article was brutal, not because it lied, but because it told the truth, the kind of truth investors hate: disorganization, mismanagement, inflated metrics. The article even quoted a former employee, one I'd quietly offered a job weeks before. The same day the article dropped, I made a call to one of Evan's largest stakeholders, a man I'd once helped secure a contract worth 7 figures. We hadn't spoken in years, but he remembered. "Is it as bad as it looks?" he asked. "Worse," I said. He divested within 48 hours. And just like that, Evan's runway collapsed. I knew what was coming next: desperation, panic, and then the inevitable: reaching out to the one person he swore he'd never need again. Sure enough, a week later, I got the email. From Evan, polite, respectful, full of faux humility. He didn't mention Haley, didn't mention the past, just said he admired what I'd built and wondered if we could connect to explore mutual opportunities. I didn't respond. Instead, I printed the email and pinned it to my wall. A trophy. He'd taken my wife, my ideas, my peace, and now he was asking for help. But this wasn't over yet, because I hadn't touched the last domino. Not yet. The fallout was quieter than I expected. I didn't throw a party, didn't open champagne or make a speech. When the final papers were signed, when Evan's company was folded completely into mine, I just sat at my desk. No music, no movement, just silence. It felt clean, not satisfying in the way people imagine revenge to be. Not like a movie where you walk away smirking. It was something else, like finally standing in an empty room after a storm and realizing you're still upright, that the walls held, that you survived, but also knowing the room will never look the same again. Haley disappeared from the public eye. A few weeks after Evans signed over control, she deleted her social media. Our mutual friends stopped mentioning her. Her name became something people paused before saying, like they weren't sure if I wanted to hear it. I didn't. Not out of hatred, out of clarity. I no longer needed to fill the silence she left. I'd rebuilt my life in that space, brick by brick, thought by thought. I didn't want her back in it, not even as a footnote. Still, she reached out one last time. A handwritten letter. It arrived on a Monday, tucked in a plain envelope. No return address. It was short. 2 paragraphs. She said she understood now. What she'd thrown away, what she'd mistaken for routine was actually stability. What she called predictable was actually safety, and that Evan had never loved her. Not in the way I did. Not in the way someone does when they stay through hard seasons without expecting applause. She said I didn't owe her forgiveness. I folded the letter in half and slid it into a drawer, not to revisit it, just to acknowledge that she finally said something honest. That was enough. One evening, months later, I took a walk through the neighborhood, something I used to do often, but hadn't in a while. Not since everything changed. It was early spring, that in-between time when the cold hasn't fully left, but the air has stopped biting. As I passed one of the side streets, I saw a familiar figure sitting on a bench. My old mentor, Alan, retired now. He taught me everything about restraint, about timing, about letting silence do more than shouting ever could. He waved me over. "You look like a man who just ran a marathon," he said. In a way, I did. He studied my face. Did it help? Define help. He nodded like he understood. Did they get what they deserved? Every inch. And do you feel better? I paused. Not better, just clear. He smiled. That's the best you're going to get. The truth is, revenge never gives you back what was taken. It doesn't rebuild the version of yourself that was destroyed when betrayal hit. It doesn't replace love or innocence or peace. But it does give you distance. And sometimes distance is the most powerful healing there is. It lets you stand still without shaking, lets you look back without rage, lets you say, that happened, without needing to bleed all over again. People imagine justice is loud. Courtrooms, arguments, public humiliation. But real justice is quiet. It happens when they lose access to you, when they can't reach your time, your energy, your presence, when they realize the bridge they burned was the only path back to real safety. A few months after everything settled, I got a call from a young developer, bright, driven, full of questions. He'd heard about my work and wanted advice on launching something of his own. I met him for coffee. He reminded me of myself at 25, hungry, focused, willing to build. But what struck me most was that he listened, really listened. Didn't try to prove he already knew everything. Didn't pretend. After the meeting, I offered him a spot on my team. Not because I needed another employee, because I wanted to show that mentorship didn't have to end in betrayal. That trust, when earned and protected, could still exist. These days, I don't think about Haley much, or Evan. I don't follow their lives, don't ask around, don't care where they landed, because they no longer orbit anything that belongs to me. And that's the real victory. Not the company, not the contracts, the peace, the space to breathe without suspicion, the freedom to build something, or someone without wondering how long until it falls apart. People say time heals. It doesn't. Time only gives you distance. Healing is a choice, and I made mine the day I stopped needing them to feel what I felt and started living like they never had the power to define me in the first place. 6 months passed before I realized I'd stopped looking over my shoulder. There was no dramatic moment, no revelation or symbolic act, just a quiet morning when I sat down to work and didn't think about them. Didn't wonder what they were doing or if they were watching me succeed. That's when I knew something inside me had shifted. I'd finally moved on. Not in a movie-ending way, not with closure, peace talks, or poetic final words, but in the most honest way, by building a life where they didn't matter anymore. That's real freedom. The company was thriving, not just financially, culturally. The people I hired weren't just employees, they were builders. I made it clear from the start. No politics, no manipulation, no games. You deliver, you grow, you fail, you learn, and you respect the space we've built. Most of them didn't know what I'd gone through. A few had heard whispers, tech circles are small, but I never confirmed or denied anything. I didn't need to. My story wasn't a badge. It was a foundation. Quiet, solid, private. Then one day, the past knocked again. It started with a LinkedIn notification. Someone viewed my profile. Evan, I ignored it. But 3 days later, I got a message from one of his former engineers. A short email. He's applying for jobs. Things went bad after the buyout. Burned bridges, no one's calling back. Just figured you'd want to know. I didn't respond, not because I didn't care, but because I'd finally accepted this. I'm not his problem anymore. He made choices, so did I. And the distance between those choices is where we both live now. Still, the message lingered. Not as fuel for revenge. That part was over. It lingered as a reminder of how thin the line is between success and collapse, between integrity and compromise, between becoming what you hated or rising above it. That night, I called my father. We don't talk often. He's not the sentimental type, but I felt something unfinished, like I needed to speak with someone who knew me before all this began. He picked up after 2 rings. "You all right?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said. "Just thinking." "About her?" "No. About who I became after her." He was quiet for a moment. "You regret anything?" he asked. "Only that it took losing everything to learn what matters." He exhaled. "That's the price of growing up. Life doesn't teach with warnings, only consequences." We talked for almost an hour, about nothing and everything. He didn't ask for details, didn't offer cliches, just listened. And somehow that filled a space I didn't know was still hollow. Weeks later, I stood on stage at a startup conference, not as a speaker, just to introduce one of my mentees, the young developer I'd hired months back. He was pitching his first product, and he was nervous. Backstage, he looked at me. "What if I fail?" "You will," I said. "Eventually. Everyone does. That's how we find out who we really are." He nodded. He went out there and nailed it. And as I watched the crowd applaud, I realized this was it. This was what I wanted all along. Not applause for myself, not headlines, not revenge, just to know I could survive what tried to break me and still help someone else build. A few days after the event, I got a message. "Haley again." This time, it was different. Short, direct, no poetry, no apology. "I saw you on the stream. You look steady, I'm glad." That was all. And for the first time, I didn't feel anything reading it. Not anger, not longing, not even validation. Just a quiet acknowledgement that she too had moved on in her own way. Maybe with regret, maybe not. It didn't matter. Her story wasn't mine to follow anymore. I once believed revenge was about balance, about evening the score, but that was never true. Revenge is temporary, dignity is permanent. Now, when I look at where I am, the people I work with, the trust I've rebuilt, the calm I've found, I don't see destruction, I see discipline. I see the cost of becoming someone who can lose everything and still choose not to destroy himself in the process. There are still days I think about the fire, not to feel it again, but to remember what I walked through to reach this place. And every time, I come to the same conclusion. They didn't break me. They revealed me. It's been 3 years. That sentence alone still surprises me. Not because time passed, but because of everything that didn't happen since. No more anonymous messages. No more updates from old friends trying to stir drama. No more late-night doubts about what I could have done differently. The story that once defined me became a closed chapter. Not forgotten, just finished. But the aftermath? That's where the real story began. The company is now 3 times the size it was during the rebuild. We're profitable, stable, and most importantly, trusted. I've built a leadership team that doesn't need to be micromanaged. They solve problems without politics, deliver results without fanfare, and protect the culture without being told to. I no longer run everything, I lead. That shift didn't happen overnight. It came from slow, deliberate steps, choosing people not just for skills but for character, setting clear boundaries, then stepping back, watching mistakes happen, but giving space for correction instead of punishment. And now I have something better than revenge. I have legacy. That word, legacy, used to feel inflated, like something only politicians and billionaires talked about. But legacy, I've learned, is built in silence. It's what grows when no one's watching. It's what people remember long after your name leaves the headlines. Mine was once nearly stolen. Not just my ideas, not just my name, but the way people saw me, the version of me that had value. When Haley left and Evan copied my work, I wasn't just angry, I was erased. I watched pieces of myself get carried into a world where I no longer had a say. I wanted to scream, to fight back, to remind everyone that was mine first, but I didn't, because the truth always comes out, not through noise, but through consistency. Now, when people talk about innovation in our field, they mention my team. When young founders look for mentors, they come to our office. When legacy clients need solutions, they send referrals directly to me. Not because I demanded it, because I outlasted the storm. I heard through a mutual contact that Evan moved to the Midwest, took a mid-level role in someone else's startup. Quiet life, no public presence, no new ventures. I'm not glad, I'm not sad. It just is. He made his choices. So did I. The distance between those choices still speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. And Haley? Last I heard, she left the tech world completely. Started writing, self-published a book, memoir style. I haven't read it, don't need to. I live my version, that's enough. There's no anger left, just distance. A few weeks ago, I was asked to give a guest lecture at a university entrepreneurship program. I almost declined. Too busy, I said. But a part of me felt it was time. So I said yes. Standing in front of a room of 20-somethings hungry for shortcuts and secrets, I didn't talk about scaling or branding. I didn't mention the betrayal or the comeback. Instead, I told them 3 things. First, whatever you build, make sure it still matters to you when no one's clapping. Second, there's no shortcut around loss, only through it. And the way you respond when things fall apart will define your career more than any success ever will. Third, never confuse revenge with recovery. One burns everything. The other rebuilds what matters. Afterward, a student came up to me. She looked nervous. How do you know when you finally moved on from the people who hurt you? I thought about it. You stop needing them to hurt, I said. That's when you're free. She didn't say anything, just nodded like she understood something her textbooks never taught her. Now, when I walk through our office, I don't think about who betrayed me. I think about who stayed, who believed, who helped, because that's where legacy lives, in the quiet loyalty of those who kept showing up. And if you ask me what I'm proud of, it's not the wins or the headlines or the metrics. It's that I rebuilt without becoming the man they tried to turn me into. That I protected my name, not through lawsuits or rants, but through work, through trust, through showing up when it was hardest. Sometimes I still get messages from people who watch the story unfold from a distance. From others who are just starting their own season of betrayal and collapse, they always ask the same thing. How do you come back from something like that? And I tell them the truth. You don't come back the same. You come back clearer, stronger, harder to shake, but more careful with your energy. You stop running toward justice and start walking in it. And in time, that walk becomes your life, not built on revenge, but on respect you no longer have to ask for because you earned it, step by step, quietly, fully, and forever. And